Danielle Steel family ties. Of course, you can bring him. Annie had only met him once. He seemed nice enough, but she hadn't been too impressed. What time should we come? Same as every year. Come at noon, lunch at 1. Or you can come home tonight if you want. Ted and Katie are spending the weekend. I promised Jean Lois I would stay with him. Liz said, sounding apologetic. I am going to help him with his shoot, unofficially. I am pulling some jewelry for him today. He is a lucky guy, Annie said, and meant it, and not just because Liz was helping him with his work. Liz always gave better than she got. The men she got involved with were always selfish and spoiled, and Annie worried that she sold herself short. She was a beautiful, talented, intelligent young woman. It shocked Annie sometimes when she realized that at 28, Liz was 2 years older than she had been when she inherited all of them. And in some ways, Liz seemed so young, and she never seemed to think about marriage or settling down. Annie realized that she hadn't set them much of an example on the score, since all she did herself was work and take care of them when they were young. They had rarely, if ever, seen her with a date. She had kept the few men in her life well away from them, and there hadn't been many anyway, and none she had cared about seriously. The last man she had been crazy about had been Seth, 16 years before. She had run into him once a few years ago. He was married, lived in Connecticut, and had 4 kids. He had tried to explain to her how bad he felt, that he hadn't stepped up to the plate for her when her sister died, and she had laughed and brushed it off and told him she was fine. But it had given her a little flutter to see him. He was as handsome as he had been before, and she had told Whitney about it. It all seemed like ancient history now. Liz was in the process of apologizing to Annie that Jean Lois hadn't brought decent clothes with him, since he had been working, and Annie assured her it didn't matter. None of the men in Liz's life ever owned a suit. Whether successful photographers or famous models, they always showed up in rad clothes with long hair and beards. It was the look she seemed to like, or the one most prevalent in her milieu. Annie had grown used to it over the years, although she would have loved to see her with a decently dressed guy with a haircut just once. In contrast, Liz was always stylish beyond belief, and gave Annie fashion tips and even occasionally brought her clothes. It was always fun to see what Liz would wear. Annie's style was simpler and more practical than hers. She felt too old now for wild clothes, and she had to wear things she could get around her job sites in without freezing or falling on her face in stiletto heels. Liz was tall, like her late mother and her aunt, and never wore anything less than 6-inch heels. They were considered running shoes at the magazines where she had worked. See you tomorrow, Lizzie said, as Annie arrived at the address on 5th Avenue and took the elevator up to the top floor where Jim Boston was waiting for her, looking slightly dazed. He was suddenly terrified what the place was too big for him, and he said he had no idea how to decorate it without his ex-wife's help. Annie assured him she would take care of everything for him, and she took some sketches out of her briefcase. and as he looked at them, he smiled. Annie had imagined the perfect bachelor pad for him. Even before he knew what he wanted himself, he was thrilled, and she walked through each room, describing it to him and bringing her ideas to life. "You are amazing," he said happily, and unlike Harry Ebersold, he wasn't worried about the cost. He just wanted something that would impress his friends and the women he wanted to date. And better than that, Annie was going to give him a home. She promised him a delivery date of 9 months, and they stood on the terrace together, looking out at Central Park as it started to snow.